Hey guys, so real quick before you start this video, I just wanted to let you know, obviously I don't know everything there is to know about CloudEndure. There's a couple mistakes here and some things that I'm still trying to figure out. It is absolutely not perfect, but hopefully this gives you a much better idea of how the tool works and how to use it.
All right, guys, so I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to show you how to use CloudEndure to do an AWS migration, or really just to migrate one server right from on-premise to AWS. And the way that I'm doing this is I installed VirtualBox on my machine. I created an Ubuntu VM, and what we're going to do is just go through the whole process of how to get that moved from Ubuntu, or I'm sorry, from my laptop, right, where VirtualBox is installed, and have that VM migrated into AWS. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the CloudEndure console, or CloudEndure. We're going to take a look at the CloudEndure console here. All right, so first thing we're going to do is create a new project. Oh, I got to log back in. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new project. So we'll call this test migration, and we'll create that project. All right, now it's telling us the project is not set up. So we've created the project, but it's not set up. Basically what it wants is the access key ID and secret access key from our account in order to be able to access it. So let's go ahead and get logged into the console so that we can get that. All right, so we're logged into the AWS console now. We go to IAM. I'm gonna just create some access keys here, or actually I think I'll create a new user here. And it doesn't have to be created with these permissions. Their documentation will tell you what permissions the user needs. But for the sake of being able to do this quickly, I'm just going to do admin here, and we'll review. All right, so then we'll copy our access key ID, paste it in CloudEndure, and then our secret key, and we'll paste that in there as well. Hit save. It'll take a minute here. It's not necessarily always the fastest, so it's got some load times on it. Okay, so now we need to set up our replication settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to say other infrastructure, because our other options here, right, are AWS regions. And then we're going to go to US East 1. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so this is how this works, is you have to install an agent on the machine that CloudEndure uses. When you install that agent, you're going to tell it what disks that you want to copy or replicate. And it's going to start replicating those disks to a host that it's going to create in AWS, where those disks are going to be stored. And then once you're ready to either test or cut over, you'll say that in CloudEndure, and it's going to create converter instances that then will create your, that version of your on-premise instance in this case, in AWS. So basically, the replication happens with one instance, and then it creates a different instance, right, to do the conversion, to take those disks that you just copied or replicated into AWS, and then actually turn it all into a working instance. All right, so let's go back here. It's not going to take that long, so I'm not worried about these instance sizes. I'm just going to save these replication settings. Okay, so next is going to show you how to install it on your source machine. So we're using a Linux machine, and this is our agent token. It already takes this token and puts it here in this command. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to download the installer just as it says, and then this command runs the installer. And when this runs, it's going to immediately start copying or replicating the data to our AWS instance. that it's going to create. So it's going to create that instance and copy those disks over. There are commands that you can use that are in their documentation that can say, hey, I want to install this, but I don't want to immediately start copying data over. But in this case, we're just going to go ahead and start copying it over. So let me get to my virtual machine here. Obviously not perfect, but this is going to be good enough for us to be able to see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and get logged in here. Then I'm going to launch the terminal. And then I'm going to run our first command. All right, so let's go ahead and run the first command here. Okay, we downloaded what we needed. And now we just need to actually run the file here. All right, so let's go ahead and run our second command here. And I changed mine from Python to Python 3 because that's what I have installed on this machine. Keep in mind that you will need Python installed in order to be able to run this script. All right, so now we're in the AWS console here, and you can see that there's this CloudEndure replication server, right? And if we click on it and we take a look at the storage, we can see right now there's just one root volume here, and we can see, all the details associated. But the important thing to note is just that it's here and it's our replication server. Okay, so let's go look at our migration here, and you can see it automatically popped us into our machines window here, where we can see that there's this device called Jake VirtualBox. So right now you can see that the instance exists, but if we go to storage, there's just this one device here, or this one disk here, and that's because it's still creating the staging disks. Once it's done creating the staging disks, right, those will exist on our instance, our replication instance in AWS. It might be done. Let's go take a look here. Let's refresh, click on it again. Okay, and now you can see that we have more than one disk here, right? We have our SDA1 and then we have our SDF, and we know that, my volume size for that is 10 gigs. So our replication disk has already been created, and now it's going to start replicating the data. And you can see the data replication process is currently at 0%, and it's going to go, of course, all the way up to 100 once the replication is completed. So I'm going to let that happen, and we'll come back and take a look at it once the replication is complete. All right, so it looks like it's finalizing the initial sync here, and it's creating the first launchable recovery point. And this first launchable recovery point is what is actually going to allow us to create the machine, either using the test or the cutover for launching the target machine. So you want to make sure, right, when you're doing this, if you know that you don't want any data from the old machine or you want it powered off or whatever, you want to make sure that you let it first finish launching the first launchable recovery point. And once it's finished with that, you could, if you wanted to, go back and power off the virtual machine that you were using. In this case, we're not going to do that, but you could. All right, well, we'll come back and take a look at it and actually, do some interesting stuff once this wraps up. All right, so it looks like we are finally in continuous data replication. That means that the copying of our disk is complete, and now we can go look at our instances in EC2. It's really going to look relatively the same as it did. And let's go back here. It's done, and now we can see it hasn't been tested, right? And then targets can be launched. So that purple rocket wasn't here before when it was doing the recovery point. So now we can launch targets in AWS. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, and we're going to launch a target in test mode. All right, and it's launching. And let's go over here to the console so that we can kind of see what's happening. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. And what we should see happening is there'll be another server similar to this replication server. That's going to be the converter or the conversion server that pops up, And what it's going to do is take the data, right, that's on the disks here. It's going to take the data on the disk here and use it to create a VM. And one thing to note that I didn't go over before doing the test is you can go create a blueprint. So when you create your blueprint, you can go in and select a machine type, launch type, subnet, security groups, really the whole 9 yards, and determine what all of those settings should be for the VM that you're going to create. So if we wanted to, right, we could come in here and make it a specific instance type rather than just letting it copy the source. Okay, and now we can see that our CloudEndure machine converter is now present. It's initializing. It's not going to take that long for it to run through this process, especially because it's only 10 gigs, so I expect it to be done relatively quickly. So we'll let it go ahead and run through the process to actually create that VM. And once it's done, we'll just take a look at it, make sure that it is in fact the same VM, and then we'll have our example complete for migrating a server from on-premise to AWS. And we'll go ahead and at that point, hit the cutover button because this isn't in production for me or anything, and just show that the continuous replication stops when we hit the cutover button, and then we'll be good to go. And it looks like it's already happened relatively quickly, right? We had our machine converter machine come online. It is already being terminated, and it looks like our Jake-VirtualBox instance is already being created here. And let's go take a look at our blueprint again, and let's see if it was supposed to stop once it was created. No, so it's supposed to be started. We'll give it a minute and it should be started. Oh, here we go. It is now started. So let's give it a minute here until it finishes initializing. Obviously, this instance type is certainly bigger than really what I had created locally for this VM. So it's pretty important to go through and set up those settings in the blueprint that that you want to have whenever you do that migration, so that you don't end up with an instance type or settings that are undesirable, right, for that instance. You can see here now our VirtualBox instance is up and running in AWS. Okay, so let's go over to the CloudEndure migration console. Let's go back to our machines dashboard here. And it looks like, right, it tested it, everything looks good, it's been tested, and it knows that, that it's able to communicate with what is in AWS. Obviously, we would leave it in test mode if we were trying to just do testing over time, right? Like say we're moving a file server or something like that, and we want to see the files that have changed. Obviously, we want to keep replicating and copying that data. But let's go ahead and see what happens whenever we switch it to cutover mode. And then we'll go over to the EC2 console. All right, it looks like it's starting cleanup. All right, so you can see here that our original VirtualBox instance has been terminated, and it is actually using the latest snapshot, right, to create a new server that is going to not be using the continuous replication. So it's going to finish initializing this converter. It's going to use, right, the most recent snapshot or version of the disk that's on the replication server, create a new VirtualBox instance, and that will be our cutover instance. It's really going to be the same as the instance that we already had because none of our data has actually changed. But whenever you move from testing to cutover, CloudEndure will create a new instance. It will just be basically that same instance or the latest version of that same instance. All right, and it looks like we've made a little bit of progress here. So we've got a replication server running, but the converter machine has been terminated. So we should start seeing our other VirtualBox machine pop up here shortly. And one thing to note is we're going to want to make sure that after we're done with this cutover, we want to come back over here, check this box, go to machine actions, and then remove the machine from the console. If we don't do, or even delete the machine. If we don't do this, then all of the EBS volumes and everything that are being used will not actually be deleted, right? So this, right now, it's not huge for us, right? Because it's just 10 gigs, but if you're doing a large migration and you have a lot of volumes, you can end up paying for a lot of unused space just because you didn't remove them from the console. So make sure that once you're done, you remove them from the console so that you don't end up paying for EBS volumes that you're not actually using. All right, let's see what's going on with our job progress here. Go over in progress. Okay, it's creating our security groups. All right, just gonna take a little bit longer. There we go. Now it's creating our VirtualBox here. And it's gonna take a few minutes to create this, but once this is created and up and running, we'll see this one go away. We'll be able to go remove our VirtualBox from the console here, and we will be in good shape. All right, so taking another look here, let's go to CloudEndure, look at job progress. It looks like our job has finished. So we'll go over here, and you can see Jake VirtualBox is up and running. And we do still have the replication server here. I may have actually been wrong about it terminating it at this point in time. It might not actually happen until we remove it from the CloudEndure console. Because if it terminates it, I think it'll get rid of all of those disks. So let's go ahead and remove it from the console. All right, stop data replication, beautiful. Whoops. And we'll hit continue. All right, here we go. Now there's no machines in here any longer. And we're done with this project, so we'll go to project actions here, and we can just delete the current project because we no longer need it. Okay, let's go back over to our EC2 here. And it looks like it's not getting rid of our replication server. I think that normally it should be getting rid of this replication server, so it's a little bit strange to me. Maybe I'll need to do a little bit of a follow-up video on that piece of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to terminate it here. And while we're at it, don't forget that if you set up this user, you want to go in and at least make your security credentials inactive, if not delete them, right? And you might even want to delete the user, which I'm going to do because I didn't set it up with least privilege. So I'm going to go ahead and blow this guy away here. Understood. All right, that is gone. Let's go back and look at our EC2. It's taking a little bit of time for this guy to shut down, but a little bit less important. But let's go look at the dashboard again here. We can see there's some snapshots from CloudEndure. And let's go back and look at the dashboard again. There's going to be some security groups from CloudEndure as well. For the instance we created, it doesn't have the CloudEndure name in the name tag, but if you look at the description, you can see that it exists there. So just make sure if you're using this for a lab, right, some of the stuff is going to be considered right in production, like the security groups, and it created a new VPC for me as well, things like that. So make sure that if you're just using this as kind of a quick lab, that you do go back and delete those things that you just don't need any longer. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to run through that with you because that's not the purpose of this video. It was just to kind of show you how to actually do a CloudEndure migration in a fairly simple way. So I'm going to go ahead and in the video here, I'm going to go delete the resources that I don't need, and I'll follow up with the video hopefully at some point in the future, kind of going over how to make sure that those snapshots and resources get deleted whenever you are done with that project. I was under the impression that would happen when we remove the machine from the console. Obviously, that wasn't the case, so I need to follow up on that and get that info to you guys. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you have a good understanding of how to do a CloudEndure migration. Thanks for watching.